Hi, everybody. Welcome to a Zoom meeting presentation by myself, SΥmµN. And today I'm going to be talking about a subject that is very abstract, yet at the same time a lot closer to our reality than you think. And so I have a lot of inspiration around the meaning for this presentation. And I think I'll just jump straight into that in terms of, what that's about. One of my first pieces of inspiration that brought me to talk to you about this today is in the line of work that I have. I get to talk to a lot of people that are currently going through different stages of their lives where the main theme is, okay, I've just awoken to this inner reality. And this inner reality that I'm experiencing seems to be very different to the one I've been living up until this point. And it feels uncomfortable. It feels I'm confused. I'm a bit lost. I'm trying to make sense of it. And through observing, interacting with clients that have been going through this and using astrology, I found some pretty profound insights, not only for myself, but also as I look at reality myself. Like, how do I look at reality? And I tend to enjoy looking at the transition of life as it goes through the different ages. One of my inspirations that comes along with today's conversation is also rooted in Jeffrey Wolf Green's talk called The Transition of Ages. And there were a couple of things that he mentioned in that talk. And one of them specifically was how humanity is evolving itself, or how the nature of human evolution is occurring. And specifically to the nature of the brain. Okay. And the way that the brain would be operating in this quantum reality. And, for a long time, I was trying to figure out what he meant by this exactly. And, what was he trying to say? And just recently, like I said, over the last, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, I've become super, super clear on what that's about. And so today's presentation is also trying to convey something that he was talking about in this lecture that he was having. And also, he also mentioned in the lecture around what does it mean to truly decondition to the point where the actual, the reality of what it is that we as human beings perceive it to be now, and a reality that is so unknown to us that transition between what we thought has always been the case to what it's moving into, that deconditioning cycle, that Uranian kind of switch from Pisces age to Aquarius age, represents a complete letting go of what we see life to be. And that was also really, really deep. And again, it took me to investigate a lot, and not necessarily seeking for the meaning for it, but really paying attention to what he was trying to say. And there's been other sources of inspiration that that has helped me process these really, really deep inner visions. And to give some context about what I mean by deep inner visions, I have Uranus and Jupiter in a conjunction in the 11th house in Sagittarius. And I also have my natal Neptune within a 10-degree orb of that, also in the 11th house, opposed my moon. And this is all in Sagittarius Gemini axis. And then the south node of Uranus is also directly conjunct my natal Jupiter. So I just like everybody else, we're able to access an inner reality and inner dimension that can reveal to us certain ways of seeing reality. And I'm also experiencing a Pluto 12th house transit. So there's a lot of cycles of confusion and then mystical experiences that awakens me to see things in a really clear way. And I've also been working through a Uranus transit, my 3rd house. So there's been a lot of activation in and an orientation within my own field of vision that is bringing me towards what I'm about to share with you today. And again, a lot of the inspiration has come through those transits. in terms of, you know, what I've been exposing myself to. So the context of this conversation is deeply rooted in my own inner vision and how I'm seeing things, how I'm trying to make sense of stuff, but mainly and how I'm watching repetitive themes exist within other people's lives and watching the actual reality change and going, oh my gosh, this is exactly what's going on. So there's a very like, there's something cool to see when helping yourself process what we are currently going through. That would be the practicalness of this multidimensional like abstract communication that I'm trying to put out there today. So that's my form of inspiration and the meaning. I mean, I wrote it down, and it's like, you know, just people awakening in the eye of the storm and really, really feeling like what is actually going on. So with that being said, I'm gonna firstly just do a screen share of my okay, so let's put this over here. I'm gonna have to do this. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so I don't know how long this is gonna take. I hope I can do it in an hour. All right. Okay, so as mentioned before, there's a lot of things that I'm going to try and cover in this conversation today. So I encourage you to truly give yourself enough space to sit back and just digest what is going to be shared today. I've tried my best to put it into some context. It's not going to come through that in the most like linear form, but there's a lot of depth to this, and so I encourage you to, you know, take your time to work through this video if this is something that's resonant or appealing to you. Okay, you'll get the best out of it, really, because it really does kind of go into a different dimension. Okay, so beyond the horizon, I love it because Pluto and Sagittarius, right? This is Sagittarius is all about going beyond the horizon, and in Pluto 2, Jeffrey Wolf Green writes about Pluto's transit through Sagittarius, Neptune's transit through Aquarius, and, you know, Uranus as well through Aquarius, and Pisces, and he talks about planetary nodes as well. And he mentions that the last time that we had these conjunctions, particularly, humanity was beginning to look beyond its borders, right? So this is where we just got to discover lands. Whereas this time around, the cycle comes around and humanity is starting to see Earth as the limitation. And now it's about like stepping outside of what we feel comfortable in terms of, oh, this is this country, this is this Earth. We're wanting to go beyond that, like actually going beyond what we know right now and stepping into another dimension that actually in this time around is not physical at all. It's completely abstract, nonlinear. And this is the picture that I really feel resonates with this conversation today. We're actually looking at something in a completely new perspective, and the generation that are bringing this energy into the planet, as I wrote about in the description, they're only emerging on right now. And I remember Kim Marie recently did a VA presentation where she was referencing a sextile between Neptune and another planet. I think it was Pluto. I'm not sure. But she just talked about how technology and spirituality are going to be merging. And this is kind of the same thread of conversation. You know, we're entering a different stage within human evolution. And there is a huge leap that is taking place for us right now. I'm like huge. And it's happening so fast that when we wake up every single day and we're in it every single day, we don't see the speed at which our evolutionary trajectory has been accelerated. You literally just have to go back 18 years and ask yourself how many people are still using fax machines to send information and, you know, requiring very high-tech orientated people to code a email. And today, the way that we interact with each other is not even remotely as complicated. Okay, so as we were talking about with the acceleration of email and the way that we are enhancing our ability to interact with the speed at which we're evolving, it's phenomenal. And it's really, really phenomenal because each of us that is sitting here today interacting with the speed is also needing to digest it within ourselves. And I think that that's something really profound to contemplate, because the conversation or the statement that I was making earlier about how I've observed people interact with this changing of reality is that, our biological form and the acceleration of this awareness, or this new paradigm of reality coming in, they're at different speeds. The body seems to be a little bit still rooted in the past, and the future orientated way of living seems to be at a faster pace, at a faster rate. And so we're needing to keep up with this, and just needing to maintain the body is taking a lot of strain. You just have to reference the thing of how when you have a mobile telephone and the screen's close to your face for a prolonged period of time, that is affecting the melatonin cycle within your brain. And so you're doing exactly what Jeffrey Green talked about when he mentioned Uranus and Neptune's transit conjunction in Capricorn, which I'll talk about, how everybody's like, just awake all of a sudden at night. Okay, so next slide, right? So this is our boarding pass to get on the airplane and really fasten your seatbelt and begin to see that we're about to take off. And we're taking off from a reality that is so not rooted in the 1700s and the 1800s and 1900s, where if you just need to look back at those times. I mean, I was looking back at some pictures today of some of the conditions that humans were living in during the wartime, and you look at reality today, and they're not even comparable. It's that crazy how different the reality is. And I also remember a comedian making a joke on one of the TV shows, who was saying that today we complain about the speed at which the internet downloads something, and we complain about it, and what we don't recognize is that the speed at which something is being downloaded is actually the technology that's involved in this process is sending a signal from Earth to a satellite in space and then coming back down to Earth again. And it's all happening in a millisecond, and we're complaining about the way in which things are lagging. It's like human evolution and what we are advancing on with our technology is pretty phenomenal, So again, just to reiterate, the speed at which things are taking off at this point in time and is just, it's phenomenal. And we're watching this, and we're in this kind of world, and it's tough for the body. It's tough for the body to be able to interface with so much of this. So, a world in transition. There is these two realities that are busy, merging together, right? And one of them is rooted in a way of living that's, based on old traditions, living a life that is deeply conditioned by old paradigm thinking, industrial revolution, industrial age, schooling systems that are rooted in one-dimensional thinking. And there's no judgment on this. It's not like, oh, this is how bad that we've lived in these things. How silly to have had schools that still have corporal punishment in it. These types of realities were part of our lives for a very, very long time. For most of us that are on the planet today, this is something that has been around for a long time, and we've experienced. So there's an old paradigm of relatability, old truths, old ways of being. And then we have this interface, which when I go on to looking at the astrology, there's these 3 generations. And you can clearly see how these 3 generations of energy that have come onto the planet mark this world in transition. So you've got this old paradigm of relatability and awareness, and then we have the transition, which was basically technology coming into our lives and completely changing the way that we interface and interact with people. Okay. And that's that like green space over there, right? So, and then you have to the right, that circle over there, which is the future. And the future doesn't even look remotely like what it looks like right now. We're going to be having the great conjunction taking place in Capricorn. And then at some point, Pluto is going to go into Aquarius, Neptune's going to go into Aries. And we're dealing with a new form of reality that's coming onto the planet that is going to accelerate technology in a way that will make it look like we're living in the Stone Age, at least from my point of view. I think that the technology that we're dealing with right now in terms of mobile telephones and us communicating in this way, this is just the beginning. And it's us only discovering what this new relationship is to this new, like, human being that is merging onto the planet relative to Pluto's transit through Sagittarius and Uranus and Neptune's transit through Aquarius. Remember, these outer planets represent a very deep evolutionary growth. And these archetypes are coded into the generation of kids that are, you know, from the age of, say, 7 up until 21, right? And at the moment, they are not influencing the world in a way that adults influence the world, right? They are merely coming onto the plane, emerging onto the plane right now. And you can just imagine that in a world where we begin to see how this emerging technology that has been literally coming onto the planet since 1966 will transform everything. And we will see that the mobile telephone that Steve Jobs brought into reality in 2006, 2007 with the iPhone and the iPod, and he was revolutionizing the way that we interface with mobile telephones and using our fingers to touch screen, etc. That's going to consistently keep happening. And there's 2 parallels that are running here. There's the sort of outer manifestation of our human evolution, and then there's the inner interface. In other words, what's happening inside of us that's a deep spiritual awakening, a really, really, really deep spiritual awakening. And this ties into another talk that I had done earlier, which was called the Saturn, the Path to Individuation. And this talk, also in the Zoom meetings, was how it was like it was a point of view that was coming in with the same intention as this conversation, but instead of it being something that's generational, it's individual. So this is, in a sense, kind of part 2. And I highly encourage you to watch that video as well in combination with this video to truly understand what it is that I'm really reflecting here, that we all are witnessing and experiencing it. So it's not like there's something new or revolutionary in what I'm sharing. It's just that the inspiration here is to kind of help us process through what we're dealing with so that we're not like running around completely lost in this experience, confused, and also judging ourselves a lot. I notice a lot of people are struggling a lot with their internal reality of, you know, we're broken or we don't know what's going on. And just to think about how long we have actually had, and this is the world in transition, how long we have actually had technology in our lives for us to be able to know how to handle it, interface with it, its potential, and what it means for us in terms of our own personal universal awakening experience. So individually, we're all on this Zoom meeting. It's been around for 2 years, and in a 2-year bracket, this Zoom meeting YouTube channel has so much content that if somebody literally had to just binge watch over the weekend, they would accelerate their awareness of astrology in a blink of an eye in comparison to 10 years ago or 5 years ago. That's what we're dealing with here. And you can go from 0 to 60 in terms of your experience of understanding something just by the plethora of content that is available relative to the universes that are now available for your eyes to see and interact with. In other words, if you're into Buddhism, the whole entire internet's now available for this. You can go and learn about it. There's courses about it. You can learn about Reiki. You can learn about anything you want to. It's available. And the veil is gone. It's so thin that you can actually, I mean, for me personally, I write a new moon article with Jen, and she turns to me and says to me, we're watching this TV show to try and unwind, but the message is coded into the TV show. It's like even if you try to escape reality, as it were, it's still there. And that's how thin this veil is between the multidimensional self, that is this new reality we're emerging into, and exactly that, this multidimensional self. The veil is so thin. So we're transitioning into this place, and it's scary because all of a sudden everything's changing. Things like getting emotionally overwhelmed by the amount of technology and information that's available there. I don't know if any of you have tried to do any coding or PHP scripts or any of that sort, and you look at the nature of how programs are coded right now. It's intensely boggling to my mind to be able to even logically figure out what's going on. It's just I'm not like orientated that way. And it's completely overwhelming to me. My body gets fried out. But to somebody else, they can see reality in that logical sequence and be like, yeah, that's what's happening there. That's what's happening there. And this way of relating to life is so much more complex and yet so much more available. And this transition is allowing us to recognize that we are literally in a transition. We are literally mutating. And this mutation that we're dealing with and awakening that we're experiencing requires us to, in a sense, also recognize we've only had it available for 18 years. You know, the year 2000 is really when technology started to become something that would creep into the collective and we would accept it. Imagine if that same pattern is continuing for us as we evolve closer to critical points in time. So I'm just going to take a breather here for a second so we kind of slow down into this next slide. And the Pluto-Uranus conjunction, right, in Virgo. And what was interesting about this chart is that I just put it in a random date, and it pulled up Pluto at 16 degrees, Uranus at 16 degrees conjunction. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And this is fascinating because when you read into evolutionary astrology's relationship to Uranus and Pluto's conjunction, we're talking about a complete cycle, a completing cycle of deep evolutionary growth at an atomic level. We're talking about something that is rooted in the core molecular structure of this existence. Uranus is going over Pluto and accelerating that. It is fracturing whatever attachments and core sort of desires, if we want to look at it from a human point of view, but from life's point of view, a cycle of complete Uranian energy has literally come to an end, and there is a rebirth that is taking place, right? This is 1966. And at the time, that consciousness it was just an emerging awareness that was taking place. It's only now, since Pluto has moved into a Capricorn and made trines to everybody that was born during the Pluto and Virgo time, and Uranus is making a first quarter square to Pluto in Aries, that the Pluto and Virgos are coming into a state and saying, oh, wow, yeah, my kids have left home. The Pluto and Scorpio kids have left home. And there's a sense of freedom. There's a sense of what can I do with my individuation? Oh, I always want to try this. I always want to do that. And it's only now do you really get to see the impact of that Pluto-Uranus conjunction that took place in 1966. You can see how we've accelerated since that point. But in terms of the actual first integration of that consciousness into the collective awareness, well, you're in it right now. We're in it right now. 2012 was that and beyond, right? And you can sync this in with the Mayan calendar and the dates preceding that. And it's just a phenomenal thing of understanding the point of origin that circle references. There's the Pluto and Virgos coming in and saying, okay, we're the first line in which this new cycle is emerging. And when I remember talking about when I remember listening to Jeffrey Wilkin talking about the Pluto and Leos and their polarity point being in Aquarius, and it wasn't a coincidence that their energy would be ushering in the initiation of the Aquarius age. I mean, you don't really need to go far to see how the works of Steven Spielberg and his Pluto and Leo energy would bring in things like Star Wars. And he's already tapping into the Uranian cycle. You know, he's already tapping into that. He's showing you that there's multidimensional realities and other worlds and interdimensional space travel that is completely foreign to us, because that's not what we do in the day-to-day grind. You know, so somebody like himself will show reality, Pluto in Leo, show the reality of the evolution of that is coming along. But for us, we're not actually getting to see that in the way that he is seeing it in an unconscious way. The same with Jeffrey, brings evolutionary astrology to the table through being channeled. And we're dealing now with a reality where this work is about the soul. And to access the soul, you can't simply be stuck in the Saturnian realm. You need to have at least started to open up to the multidimensionality that is your existence. At least embracing that is the first step in ever seeing the truth in what you can interpret when you see Saturn in Pisces in your 12th house and you're trying to make sense of why the family history is rooted in alcoholism, you know, as an example. So bringing in that work. And then you've got other work like the Ra person that brings in human design and talks about the nature of human evolution moving along. And these are all Pluto and Leos that are channeling this polarity point. And you've got Linda here today with everybody else that's working. And it's like the acceleration to the point where now you have a community, Aquarius, of people that are like-minded, that are digesting material at a rate faster than you can, you know, blink. So, and it's available instantly. There's no like waiting time. You know, we're living in an age where this is available to us instantly and it's on demand and you can access it whenever you want, how you want, and wherever you want. And this is the point of this origin. That when you look at the internet, the people that brought the internet to us were the Pluto and Virgos. And I mean, like for me, what I do is I like to go and study the internet pre the Pluto and Libra and study the internet with Pluto and Libras. And what you'll notice is the internet with the Pluto and Virgos is everything's linear and it's like links and it's all, you know, very, very simple blogging, writing. And then the Pluto and Libras come along and all of a sudden you've got Facebook links to it. You've got share it on Pinterest. You've got, you know, see my picture over here. And it just, the whole entire thing blows up into this whole picture format. And now we're getting into the Pluto and Scorpio realm of how they're conditioning the internet, which, just by the way, the internet is literally a projection of the inner reality of the whole entire collective in space for us to interface with. It is our limbic projection. It is literally everything that you see in it. That's why when you go onto Facebook and you see how somebody's complaining about something, what you're seeing is their limbic projection onto something objective so that you can then view it in an objective way. I mean, what a time to really understand and see the internet in a way that it is right now by seeing Pluto through Capricorn, i.e. Pluto through Capricorn. Capricorns is the reflection of our inner world. And here we are today and we can see everything on the internet. It's a reflection of us. We see ourselves, right? And so Uranus transits through Aries, squares Pluto and Capricorn, and what we have is the acceleration of our perception of ourselves on the internet. So what we're dealing with here is then looking at with Pluto and Scorpios coming in is privacy. How many of you on May 13th or around about that time went, oh my God, here's this new law in the EU that says you have to have the telling people that if you're internet interfacing with their websites that you've got privacy Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg and the trial of privacy, you can see how each generation is bringing into the internet and contributing their own essence. And you get to see it firsthand by observing it, right, through the internet, because it is a reflection of us. So a brave new world, right? Look at the conjunction that takes place with Uranus conjunct Neptune in Capricorn, right? Saturn's even in Aquarius. And what I find really fascinating about this, and I talk, I always use this example, is Uranus, acceleration, detachment, deconditioning. Neptune, universalization, dissolving boundaries, and it's in Capricorn, so it's the way that we structure and organize our reality, right? Just for a moment, sit back and think how the onset of the mobile telephone began to take place once this conjunction was in motion, right? And we're living in a world post Uranus Neptune conjunction in Capricorn where we do get to objectify ourselves through a detached way, internet, that allows us to dissolve the boundaries, our physical boundaries, but also transcend the boundaries of time, because in Australia, it's 5 o'clock in the morning for Linda. It's 10 o'clock at night for me over here. It's, 5, maybe like, I don't know what time it would be in the States at the moment, maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock. We're all here in the same space. And yet our bodies are still in the 21st century, meaning that our bodies have not had the opportunity to transcend time, because biologically that would be a mess. So we're sitting in these vehicles that are still of the ancient realm, but our consciousness is able to access a dimension of reality that's beyond that. And so that's what I talk about when talking about the body and the evolution of our new selves being completely reflected in this moment right now by seeing that differentiation. Okay. And then finally, the shift in reality, Pluto and Sagittarius, Uranus and Neptune, Neptune and Aquarius, and we have Uranus in Pisces, right? And this is basically a simulation. So the conjunction takes place in 1993, 1994, and then all of a sudden we have the assimilation. That's Uranus going through Aquarius, Uranus going through Pisces, Neptune through Aquarius, and now we have Neptune in Pisces, right? The assimilation. When you look at the Pluto and when you look at Sagittarius, it's not logical. It's linear. It's non-linear. It's abstract. It's peripheral. And this evolutionary dynamic is showing us that where we're going as a human race is not rooted in something that is about the past. It's not about industrial 1 + 1 = 2 dynamics. Everybody conforms. That energy is not about that. It's about the natural law of our individuation rooted in our senses. I had an opportunity, I don't know if some of you have seen it before, but the Pluto and Sagittarius kids that have Neptune in Uranus in Pisces, they have this kind of like thing that they're going through right now where they're all got these little scooters, and not like riding scooters, but push scooters. And they're all doing tricks, and it's like the new skateboarding phase that happened in the 80s, right? But it's on scooters. And when I went to go and see a competition with these scooter kids, you could see so clearly this Uranus and Neptune energy, because these kids they were like hundreds and hundreds of people packed in the same place, all riding scooters around. But you can imagine how densely populated this area was with everybody riding their scooters, but not one person bumped into another person, because it was almost as if they were so in tune with their flow, Uranus and Pisces, that they would sense exactly where to go and how to go. And it was mind-boggling to me to watch this generation of kids have this and watch them be so in the flow with things that they would I watched it with a hawk eye. That's what I like to do. I like to observe reality. And I would watch them literally like fish swim in the ocean of consciousness and sense exactly where they were going in such a deeply intuitive way that I was like, wow, that is the right brain. That is the nature of this holisticness, where they're connected, their bodies are so connected to a reality that's beyond the physical that we can see, that they're navigating beyond what our minds can tell us, because the mind can be so conditioned by fear and uncertainty and if I should and if I shouldn't. Whereas these kids were so rooted in something that was so natural with them that their bodies were guiding them. And this gives you a clue about the shift in reality, right? And so the point here is that the shift in reality is going from a place that doesn't exist physically. It's not physical. This Uranian realm and the perception of the individuated self, there is an AR imagery, right? This is technology that you have on your phone that was sent out in the world, and this is another thing to take into consideration. Whenever you see information go crazy in the world, ask yourself which company has invested in technology that is now testing it on the public so them to see exactly how it's going to go. So we have this thing called Pokemon Go, right? Pokemon Go had the world going crazy to the point where everybody was moving their bodies in a direction without their brains fully engaged because they were in a multidimensional world, right? And so this picture over here is now that technology has moved away from sort of just being tested on kids and stuff to being implemented in a mobile telephone, where this guy can put up a phone in the exact airport and the phone will say, go in this direction. And that is the AR, augmented reality. How many of you have done little messenger pictures and or talk to somebody on Messenger for your Facebook, and then you notice that you could put flowers on your head and all of that type of stuff, right? My daughter loves it. She's growing up in that world. To her, post-Uranus in Pisces, post-Neptune in Aquarius, post-Saturn in Aquarius, post-Uranus conjunct Neptune in Capricorn, that whole entire reality, she gets born into this world and goes, oh, that's normal. That's what you do. You have a telephone, you can speak to my Nana, and I'm going to put flowers on my head, and it's as if we're in the same room. I never had that opportunity. It's like, I remember a world in which if you wanted to go and see your grandmother, you would drive over there or you talk to them on the telephone, and the telephone didn't have a face. But here they're growing up in this reality. It's like, yeah, this is normal, and to add extra effect, I can make myself look like a Dracula and laugh and giggle. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. But this is where we are. And it's not technology, because technology is not the thing that's evolving us. It's us that's evolving inside of us, and the manifestation of this technology is materializing where we are going inside. So this whole thing about the return to the feminine gets under my skin, because I feel like we're not grasping the content of what it actually means when the feminine energy is rising. It's not rising to redeem the patriarchal pain, because it's not narcissistic like that, because it's not looking at humanity through that lens. The rise of the feminine principle is us returning to an inner place of awakened state, where both the expression of masculine energy that is pure awareness and feminine energy holds space is what's available for humanity right now. And it's that point zero. It's called singularity. We're heading towards singularity. And it is the combination of both. It's the combination of the body being synchronized with a higher self. In old traditions, they would call it the higher self, right? And this is not, again, new information. The Eastern philosophy and teachings would say that this realm exists. And yes, that's true. But now it's coming to a point where we can actually see it in the physical. And that's the cool thing about this experience over here, that this transition is us merging from just being this Homo sapien type of existence, roaming around, trying to do whatever it is that we're trying to do, pretending that we know what we're doing, to this reality where all of a sudden we're going, oh, okay, I need to go there. And this thing is telling me exactly how to go there. And I can see it. I can see my inner vision outwardly. It's nuts. So the reason why I chose this picture at the bottom over here, if you can see this, is that if you look at the brain, it has the brain stem, which is that reptilian part of ourselves, regulation. Then we have the evolution, and we have the limbic system, and we have the mammalian part of our brain that's regulating our emotions and social behavior. And then we have the prefrontal cortex, right? Oh, wow, we can plan. The next step in our evolutionary trajectory is the Uranian component that sits right in front of your head, just like this picture over here, that you can't see, but you know it's there. And that is the next phase of our cognitive awareness. It's outside the body, but yet still connected deeply with it. And that's what that picture was right in the beginning with the two circles. It's how does somebody that's born in 1960 come into a world that for most of your life you spent just kind of doing fax machines, phoning, et cetera, and all of a sudden now you've got this new mobile telephone where you've got to pay your bills through a bank app, or you're not allowed to get on a bus because you don't put coins in the coin machine anymore. You have to buy an app or get an app to pay for it. And if you don't have that app, or if you don't have mobile data, if you don't have Wi-Fi connection, you're screwed. How does the body react in that experience? How much conditioning have you experienced in this reality? Now all of a sudden you got to jump into that one to survive. This is this point. And so there's a lot of like struggle between seeing and experiencing a non-dimensional reality, because it's not there in a sense, because you can't use your eyes. So you have to awaken. Otherwise you can't embrace this place. And you simply need to just look at your telephone and ask yourself, wow, I'm staring at my phone, and my phone is a teleportation device that allows me to access any realm wherever I want to go. Not physically, of course, because the body is still stuck in its old evolution, but my awareness can go anywhere because it's everywhere. And my phone is literally reflecting to me the very nature of my own Uranian individual perception of self, because you're part of this group, you're part of that group, you don't like that group, you stand for that, you don't stand for that. Do you know what I mean? So it's navigating in this place. And that's this evolution. It's like stepping into a different realm that's not there. The Uranian realm is waking up. And it's about your bandwidth. It's literally like fiber optic. It's sitting over here. I mean, in our home, we have 1,000 megabyte connection, right? And the purpose of that is because I do a lot of work that's internet based. And so I need that upload speed in order to allow for whatever I'm creating to go into the internet. And so you have the invention of fiber optics, which is literally our human capacity to access information at the speed that is available to us. In other words, your brain has a capacity to connect to this multidimensional realm, and it can then upload and download relative to what you are available to, like what you can do. That Pluto through Sagittarius, that Uranus through Aquarius and Pisces, and Neptune through Aquarius, and also the Pluto and Scorpio generation who brought this technology with them, right? They're all like, yeah, this is how you code this internet, this is how you bridge this over here, this is how you do that, this is Snapchat, this is how you do that. And they have this upgraded fiber optic connection within themselves that just understands technology. It's like born into it. Whether it's developed or not is a different story, but it's there. I know for myself, I was born on the cusp of this reality. And I remember living a life where I didn't have any technology. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I started just spending a great deal of time with people that was just deeply connected to technology. And so I learned about it, right? And I know how this works. So in this new realm, your capacity to absorb is directly linked with your bandwidth. And what is your bandwidth about? It's the capacity to be open to this multidimensional realm. And I don't know how you develop it or what you need to do to practically enhance the experience. Actually, I do. It is about cleaning your body. And I highly encourage you to go watch the video on the water trine, the first one, where it talks about how detoxification of heavy metals as well as cellular regeneration and regrowth takes place in the body to allow yourself to absorb higher frequency states and for your electrical system to be able to transmute and translate the energy that's coming onto the planet as well as in you. So it is about eating cleaner. It is about putting more organic stuff into your body and less Monsanto and all of that type of nonsense. So interpersonal travel. This is the thing that freaks me out the most, but yet is at the same time something to completely contemplate. I was talking to somebody today, a client, we were using Zoom, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, this person is completely synthetic. They're right. And in the sense that they're synthetic, because on the screen, I can't touch them in the way that it's physical. But as I'm talking to this person, they're in the same place as me. we're not in a different time. We're not in a different time zone, even though we are, you know, mentally, we're actually in the same space, sharing the same thing. And the resonance between two countries. I mean, like I said, most of my clientele is from America or from Australia. And so I'm interacting with people that have different time zones. Every single person has the ability to interpersonal travel. In other words, we can travel through dimensions with this new state of awareness. The only downside is that, of course, we're still containing the physical body, which is the transition, right? In the future, I don't even know how this is going to work, but I know for a fact that we will be developing technology with this Pluto Sagittarius generation that will allow us to literally access multidimensional realities through things like augmented reality, through things like virtual reality. And we could literally travel to a place like in Australia and be in the exact same place. The only difference is that our bodies would be synthetic at that place because we can't break down the bioorganism because that's too messy and complex. So we're at the cusp of experiencing interdimensional travel in a way that is, Zoom is just the beginning phase of it. And it's so in an infancy stage. It's not even remotely close to what it's going to look like. But here we are experiencing the birth of it. And so this is the best attempt that I can have in terms of explaining this. So on the left-hand side, you see the picture over there. And I want you to focus clearly on this part. Let's see over here. You see that kid? Do you notice how she's got this projection of reality that's not connected to a mobile telephone? Look at the nature of how the feminine energy is in the technology. It's not shapes, that's not like squares and boxes. It's all like soft edges, right? The nature of technology is coming through with the feminine in a way that's all about round edges. And you'll observe that, right? The difference between the patriarchal Virgo age with everything that was linear and sequential, now everything is interdimensional. And yeah, like I said, you can see that there. And even to the point of looking at our interface with pets and robots. I mean, we're not that far away from having our reality interfaced with a helper. In other words, right now at the moment, we've got self-checkout, right? Instant download, all of these types of things, all of this technology is emerging for us because we want more free time. This is the point of Uranus's transit through Aquarius and Pisces and Neptune's transit through Aquarius. We want to be liberated from these physical bodies because they're limiting to us, because we're outgrowing them. And so the only thing that will spur humanity on is to free ourselves from the shackles of having to do the 9-to-5 job, because that's not what we want. Everybody wants to follow their heart. Everybody wants to follow what is their purpose and destiny. And you can see immediately that when we're interfacing with that reality, that inner reality, we're interfacing with something that is going inward. And because we're going inward, we don't want to be constrained by the tasks of having to go and do things outside in the world that take up our time, that we don't want to invest our time into, because we're seeing that our time, we don't want to waste it there. So this picture over here in the middle with this painting is that at some point we will start to create realities where we will pixelate it. And this reality will be created encoded in such a way that you can travel to a different part of the world and be so immersed by the reality that you wouldn't even know that you're in a different reality. It's not far off. Okay. I focused a lot on technology. I focused a lot on this purpose over here, but I wanted to talk also about the binary, which is the actual thing that's creating this thing for us, and that this inner shift that's taking place for us. So the inner reflects the outer, right? The inner reflects the outer. As above, so below. Technology is not coming from outside of us. It's emerging out of us. We are birthing it. We're birthing this new perception of ourselves, and we're seeing it and we're awakening to it. And that's what I meant about the internet. There's this line between you seeing your Facebook and interfacing with the friends and people there, and you share what you share. That's you expressing your limbic expression, and people will resonate with you through the like button by either recognizing limbic resonance or not. In other words, oh, do I feel safe with this person's projection or not? And that's pretty much how the internet is developed at this point in time. But going forward, it won't be about that. Because in this new reality of awakening experience, you can't bring the fear body. You have to be rising up into the new world and actually transcending the physical limitations that is associated with this old evolutionary body, which is rooted in fear, which is rooted in scarcity, which is rooted in all of the things that we still project into our reality of going, there's not enough water on the planet. Have you guys seen how much ocean there is? The limitation is not the fact that there's not enough water. It's because we haven't been able to use our technology to enhance our capacity to rejuvenate and regenerate and recycle in a way that allows us to use the resources in a healthy way. We're starting to do it because we're forced to do it, because Pluto through Capricorn is forcing it. And the Pluto and Sagittarius that will come onto the planet will say, this is how you're going to do it, because they already have that birthed into them. It's only us that are sitting right now that are working through this material. The Pluto and Sagittarius are coming in, they're like, oh yeah, technology's always been here, right? We can see ourselves, we can objectify it. Have you had a conversation with the Pluto and Sag before? It's phenomenal. It's like, wow, I wish I could have communicated at that age, the depth that they have. And it's nothing because they're special or anything. It's just that is where that energy frequency already exists within them. They're just coming onto the planet to show us what the next step is, just as the Pluto and Scorpios did, and just as the Pluto and Libras did, etc. So part of this new world is actually breaking out of the shell of these limitations. And that is what we're experiencing with this Pluto through Capricorn. We're experiencing all of this stuff that we carry with us that's rooted in our cellular bodies, that is so deeply attached to ancestral karma and the tragedies and the wars and everything. And it's only through a deep shock and a deep rinsing out, Venus retrograde, in Scorpio, squaring Mars in Aquarius on the South Node, that we're going into the depths of this and having to literally rinse out Neptune through Pisces, rinse it out, clear it out, end the cycle. Because once this cycle is completed, you're either on the Pluto in Aquarius train, which is about individuation in the new world, or you're stuck behind and you're traumatized and you're going to not know how to deal with these emotional shocks. Right? So this inner awakening experience is the liberation, and the liberation is from the outdated self, right? The rooted paradigm. I love this picture so much because the new kind of spiritual being is not going to be rooted in looking at an existential God or needing a belief system outside of ourselves to be following. It's not about that at all. It's rooted in the capacity to not only see the source that is us, in other words, Neptune through Pisces. When Neptune goes into Aries, there's going to be a whole entire new evolutionary direction regarding humanity, spirituality. And here I'll call it source gazing. The capacity for a new spiritual being to be able to link the two eyes of duality into the third eye, and then that third eye doesn't look outward up into some omnipresence over there, but is focused inwardly into the heart. And that precision from their closed eyes straight into the heart is the source of your existence. It's your own galaxy. It's the center of your own being. And the more that you actually just see that swirling around within yourself, the more you'll be able to actually understand that this new reality is formed on the development of things like everybody has their own time. And that time is an illusion, yes, in the sense of the old paradigm, because we had to evolve in that way. That's how we evolved. That's how we were able to build what we're structured right now. But the new world that we're emerging out of us is looking so deep within our own space that each person has their own unique fractal, their own unique storyline, their own unique growth cycle, their own unique spiritual story. And we're all at different points in different places, and we're going to be meeting people at different points in different places. So the source gazing is gazing into your own beingness and then guiding that, using that system at an intuitive level. That is navigating in this world completely blind through the eyes, because what you're going to see in the outer world is literally the hangover of the postmodern world. And the only way to actually relate is to recognize the actual meaning of the divine feminine rising, which is the integration of the body, not as the vehicle of old self, but merely as that source is integrated within it. In other words, the body is connected to the physical realm, and the physical realm is connected to the morphogenetic field, which is the Neptunian realm. And that's where everything will move through. It comes through us like that. Oh, this is the person that I can gaze into their eyes and see the depth of their own beingness. This is a safe place for me. So it doesn't become likes on Facebook through limbic resonance because I feel safe with this person's opinion, but it's more about actually meeting somebody in the presence and feeling the presence of that and being able to know the source of their own presence. As I said, universal time, non-linear. I wrote in the description, I've got about 5 to 10 minutes left in this conversation, so we're almost done here. The universal time, I talked about the Pluto and Sagittarius is coming onto the planet. Here you have Uranus and Neptune moving through Aquarius, and the pressure of the old paradigm being placed on the Pluto and Sagittarius with this Uranus and Neptune energy through Aquarius and Pisces is you've got to be successful at this time. You've got to know what you've got to be doing with your life here. You know, you've reached 18 and now you've got to be doing this. And it's like these set principles of how to be are rooted in an old paradigm. And that in this new awakened state, you don't know anything until your Saturn return. And then when you get to your Saturn return, you're still going to go, okay, cool. So I've reached this point where I recognize that time is moving along and I've got to kind of work through my emotional stuff, right? Fantastic. Saturn return, here I come. And then you get your Uranus opposition. You go, okay, next time change, right? Uranus opposition, awakening of the spiritual self. That's why that Zoom meeting that I spoke about is important to watch, because the transition from the Saturn to Uranian life, most of us don't even know what we're truly going to be until the Uranus opposition, because that's the time when we're fully awakened from our conditioning of all of the past. So even before we can even begin to know what we're going to do with our lives, how can we begin to make calculated decisions at the age of 21? It's madness. So there's a lot of pressure that these kids have about what they should be when their time frame is completely coded to something completely different. It's non-linear. It's a cosmic time. It's not a man-made time, because we're not looking outward anymore. And this slide over here just kind of connects with this whole thing, that it's because we're source gazing and we're going into the heart, it's all about the heart resonance. It's about this resonates with me right now. The Aquarius age is about frequency. It's looking at what is at the heart of the experience and saying, this is where I am at right now. That's where that's at right now. So I'm magnetized, or I'm not magnetized, and go away with the mental judgments and persecutions. And this, you're wrong. It's more about, I don't resonate with this right now, so I'm going to move on. And then at some point, I might bump into this spaceship again in this cosmic realm of non-linearness. And if my heart resonates with it, fantastic, then we meet. And there's a unified field. And what's brilliant about this is that the instant downloads that take place is faster than having to learn knowledge-based education, because the heart will just understand the intelligence. The body will just understand the intelligence straight away, because we've all got this inherent intelligence within us. We don't have to actually go and educate ourselves. We just need to honor what is our natural intelligence, which we don't know about because we haven't lived like that. That's another part of the confusion. Everybody's like, follow your heart. It's like, well, I don't know what my heart is. Yeah, because we never were taught how to do that in school. I've got 3 more slides to go. So this is a chart of a person called Elon Musk, and you can see Pluto and Virgo, even though he's got Uranus and Libra over there. North Node conjunct Mars in Aquarius, and we've also got this this kind of Jupiter-Neptune conjunction over here in Sagittarius, Scorpio. And he turns around and says, this is his whole entire trip. I don't know if you know about him, but he's the person that is responsible for Tesla cars and the nature of essentially bringing technology into the world where it's rooted in a post-fossil fuel-based world, right? And he goes, I want humanity that is at a space age. In other words, I want a humanity that is spacefaring. I want to be able to create it where we travel between planets. This is a person that's born with this Pluto and Virgo, setting in motion the seeds for the Pluto and Sagittarius generation and beyond to go, yeah, we're bringing the technology to you. Right? We would have never had this Zoom meeting presentation in 1995 or 2005. We simply didn't have the technology, right? But now we sit it here today and it's like, oh, this has always been here, right? So this point is that you can see with this person's chart. I just chose this because of the comments that he had made around his deep need to, you know, build a rocket to Mars and build over there. It's not about the achievement. It's about the thinking process in taking the horizons of what we perceive our boundaries to be, breaking them and saying, we can go further. But really what he's saying is that humanity is exploring itself deeper. And as a result, outwardly, through the law of as above, so below, we're seeing ourselves extend ourselves to like places like Mars, as an example, right? Brilliant. We're giving birth to a new humanity, a new human. See, the old Michelangelo picture in the Pisces age was, you know, human, the man trying to connect with God, and you could see the fingers trying to touch, and one of them was referencing the limbic system, right? The pineal gland. This is the same over here. It's just that humanity's physical form and its evolution of singularity and non-judgment and essentially basically operating in units, we're making that connection and we're on the cusp of it. And we are the first human beings to witness this coming onto the planet in a way that will literally be completely normal to the generations to come, because they're like, oh, it's always been here. But we know that it wasn't here. We saw it. And so this picture on the right at the bottom over here is this, it's how we're looking at ourselves and seeing the comparison between two species that at some point will occupy the same planet and yet be so parallel to each other. Because one was rooted in this kind of like survival orientation based reality, and the other one was rooted in a completely different realm that was accessing a realm that you can't even see. And so finally, the future is here in the sense that if you look at this picture, this is an actual roller coaster that you can use virtual reality glasses on in the UK called Alton Towers. And you can use a roller coaster that is built physically, and the roller coaster takes you interdimensional. It's like the physical realm and the non-physical realm are merging together. And what that means for us spiritually is the awakening of this work, right? Of this work of evolutionary astrology and looking at the soul and going beyond that. So beyond the horizon. Thanks very much, people, for letting me babble on for as long as I did. I hope that you found this deeply fascinating and inspiring as much as I did, and I was able to converse that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, SΥmON. That was incredible. Thank you. Just wanted to mention
that.
The video you mentioned that you recommend people to watch first is called Saturn, The Path to Individuation, and it's on YouTube, and it's dated 28 June 2018. So, SΥmON, thanks again. Would you all please thank SΥmON Vorster?
Thank you, SΥmON. Brilliant as always.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, SΥmON.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you. Fascinating.